Okay, welcome everyone to the fourth part of the Awesome Graph tutorial. Today we will focus on the backend development for our awesome app. So let's forget about the nice visual parts of the graph making here and go into the backend. So let's get started and see what we want to cover here today. Go. Okay. There we go. Okay, so what I will cover today is the backend. As I mentioned, we will cover the Flask framework, which is a Python framework for doing websites or servers, web servers. Check some routes in Flask. How do we do templating in Flask? And namely using the Jinja template. So this is what we will cover today. Okay, let's start by just creating a little Python file. So this is a standard way of creating just a Flask app. So actually, if you don't have Flask installed, which I should not have in this, actually I probably have it in this system, but if you would not, you would do pip install Flask or something like that. Okay, so I already have this installed. So let's go back to here. Okay. What we need to import is from Flask, import Flask, capital F, and render template, which we will use in a while. We can keep it for later. Then we're going to initialize our application here. We can call it anything, but now we will create a new Flask app that would just has the name of the file, which is app.py. Okay, and let's be proper here and use this. This is sort of the main function of Python. I won't explain it in depth here, and then we'll just do app run debug equals true. This is useful when things crashes and so on. Let's see what it complains about. There we go. Okay, so this is really the most simple setup you can do of a web app. So now we can start it from the terminal. Python app.py. Now it's starting. It's because I'm debug mode. It says active here. You can use this pin later in the web browser to debug, and we are running on port 5000. So we can go there. Let's go to localhost 5000, and it says URL not found on this server. Yes, and it's here in the backend. We can also see get HTTP 1.1 and 404 page not found. Great, because that makes sense because we have not implemented any routes yet. So now we'll look at routes. And this is basically to tell the browser when we go or the backend, when the client tries to connect in the browser to an address, where should we guide it in the application here? So this is quite simple. We do app route, and which you specify where you will do the app route for. So in this case, I will use the just dash. Define here. You can call it anything. This is just a Python function, and return home is whenever with you. Good. Okay, and in the background here we can see change detected in this program reloading. So this is part of the, when you have it in debug mode, it will automatically reload the page as well, which is quite convenient. Okay, let's see what happens. Oh, look at that. Home is whenever I'm with you. So when I go to this slash here, I will come to, this basically is the same as writing this. Yeah, so we can try this in a more advanced, slightly more advanced setup. So we need to rename this function. It can be called anything. Let's call it routing. And routing here. So this can also be anything. So foobar, let's call it that. and let's write foo is wherever I'm with. That's all right, so let's keep it like that. Okay, now this one should be reloaded and we can go to foobar and we get foo is whenever I'm with you. So slash gets us to this function and slash foobar guides us to this function here. And so this is pretty cool. So this is a basic understanding of, this gives you a little bit of, if you haven't worked with web service before, this is sort of how web service do things in the background. So on a standard website, maybe you have login or you might have help and so on. Okay, so, but writing HTML pages like this is extremely cumbersome and not very nice. So that is where templating comes in. So now I'm going to create a new folder here, templates. So Python Flask has a way of, we'll come to what a template is, but it always looks under this templates directory here. So let's create a new file there. Let's call this home.html. Okay, so now I have home.html here. So this is just regular HTML. I can do home awesome graph home with that, and then h1 home is where the heart is. Okay, great. So now we have this called a template. This is just pure HTML currently. Now we want to direct our page to this, and this can be done. Let's say if we go to this slash here, I want to direct that to that nice HTML page that I just did. This is also very simple in Flask. You do render template like this, and you, instead of returning just a string, you will render template and then home.html. And Flask automatically knows I need to look in this templates home. This home.html is found here in templates. Okay, so now let's see if it has reloaded. And there we go. So this is the page up here. And this is basically how templates work. So let's see if we go back to the README, what have we covered? We have covered Flask framework, routes, and templates. So now, to make templates more interesting, we have something called Jinja here. And there's a link to the reference as well. If we want to create dynamic content, so in this case, for example, maybe we want to list, let's say we have users in a database. In this case, my database is just a list, Python list. So I can do Magnus, John, Andrew, perhaps. I can pass this to the template, so I can use this in the template. So let's say users equals. So it does. This doesn't have really to match, but you can do users equal. Let's call it user list, just to make them that they don't look the same. Okay, so this means that I pass the list users into this template as the variable user list. And this means I can use this variable in the HTML here. Okay, so now we're going to talk about Jinja 2 for a second. So Jinja 2, maybe here. Okay, so Jinja, let's see what it says here. It's a full-featured template engine for Python. It has Unicode support and optional integrated sandbox execution environment, widely used and BSD licensed. Great. So I will just give some basic introduction here. So basically, we know I sent a variable user list to this template. That means I can use it here. How do you then use variables? Well, this is how you do it. This is the notation. So you take double bracket like this, and then you just type the variable. So let's see what happens if I do this. I go here, reload. Okay, so here we can see that my list from users was passed into a render template as user list. I just printed it here and it just prints it straight away like this. So very nice. Of course, I can add something like this, and if I go here, it will be reloaded. Great. So this means you can have a user database or something like that. Really cool. Okay, so last feature I want to show of Jinja here is the for loop. So I will just be super lazy and just copy this whole thing for users in user list. So I will loop over the user list, so all the names. I will remove this. So this is an unordered list, and this is list item. So I could write 1 here, or A. Actually, I will keep it empty. So first of all, A, B, C. So first of all, I can just do a static list like this. You have A, B, and C. If I go here, I have A, B, and C, and then some empty fields. So this is how a list looks like. Of course, I want to use my names. And what this does is it takes the users from user list and just loops over it. And of course, inside these brackets then, I have this variable user that contains a single name. So I can use it something like this, user. Okay. And there we go. So this is quite powerful. As you see, it's very simple. I only have an index. Actually, index page is not used here. I have the app, which is very short. I have a templates folder and a home template. And you can create something beautiful like this. So that means we have covered the this Jinja 2 as well. Maybe next time we'll come to WebSockets. We shall see. And of course, I will stop this here. So basic, forgot how I name these things. Basic Flask app for awesome graphs. Okay, let's see if I can see this in the GitHub as well. Yeah, looks great. That's it for this time. Have a nice day.